In a world before the internet, a time of simpler joys and analog wonders, we find ourselves drifting back to an era when technology was not in our pockets but held in our hands. Let's travel back to the age of handwritten letters, mixtapes, and physical photo albums, where memories were tangible and the digital world had yet to take over, starting with calculator watches. Our teachers used to tell us that we needed to master math because, believe it or not, we wouldn't have a calculator in our pockets all the time. Can you imagine that? But then something marvelous happened. We got not just a calculator, but an entire calculator watch right there on our wrists. It was the Casio calculator watch, a true marvel of its time. With it, we could perform mathematical wizardry wherever we went, and it felt like having a piece of the future right on our arms. Around that same era, there was another incredible invention, a watch that could double as a TV remote control. It was like having a magic wand for our televisions, and it left us feeling like masters of the living room. But as amazing as these watch gadgets were, they too have become relics of a bygone era. In today's world, we carry all singing, all dancing smartphones in our pockets, which not only serve as calculators and remote controls, but also do 1,000 other things. It's a reminder of how technology evolves and how what once seemed futuristic quickly becomes the norm. Phone booths. Phone booths. Those were the days. Back in my time, phone booths were as common as lampposts on every street corner. They were our lifelines to the world, our communication hubs. You could find them on bustling city streets, quiet country lanes, and even at the most remote gas stations. You see, in those days, we didn't have these fancy smartphones everyone carries today. If you needed to make a phone call, you'd step into one of those booths, insert a few coins, and dial away. The iconic red or blue boxes became symbols of connection and privacy. But alas, they couldn't withstand the march of technology. The rise of mobile phones in the late 20th century made phone booths obsolete. People no longer needed to search for a phone booth when they could just carry a phone in their pockets. The once thriving phone booths started vanishing from our streets, becoming relics of a bygone era. Now, they're mostly memories for folks like me to reminisce about. I miss the clinking of coins, the creaking door, and the feeling of isolation in a world filled with voices. Phone booths may be extinct, but the nostalgia they evoke lives on, reminding us of simpler times when a call required a little more effort and a lot more privacy. Wired telephones. The wired telephone, which has been around since way back in 1844, it had seen countless changes over the years, but eventually it found itself on the brink of obsolescence. One of the most memorable versions of the telephone was the rotary dial phone. Imagine a phone with a circular dial, and to make a call you had to physically spin that dial for each digit of the phone number you wanted to call. It was quite a process, and it had its own unique charm. However, as time marched on, rotary phones became more of a relic than a practical tool. They became something of a novelty, a piece of history, because modern smartphones started taking over. These tiny computers we carry in our pockets today are not only incredibly personal, but also affordable and easy to get. They changed the way we communicate, and wired landlines began to follow the same path into the annals of history. So as we chat on our futuristic holographic communication devices, remember the humble wired telephone and the rotary dial phone. They were once essential parts of our lives, but now they're like artifacts from a bygone era. And we have these amazing pocket-sized computers to thank for. Times have surely changed, and it's a story worth remembering. Pagers and beepers. Back in the 50s, there was this fascinating invention called pagers. They were created and put together during that time, but it took a while for them to become all the rage, and that didn't happen until the groovy 80s. Pagers were these nifty one-way communication gadgets that found their niche with folks like emergency services, doctors, and safety personnel. You see, these dedicated professionals needed to be reachable at all times when they were far away from that good old landline telephone. But as time went on and the early 2000s rolled in, something even cooler hit the scene: smartphones. These amazing devices started to steal the spotlight, and pagers and beepers began to fade into the background. However, pagers had a secret weapon. They were tough cookies. They were durable, reliable, and had better coverage than those shiny new smartphones. So even though they weren't as hip as they once were, they stuck around for a few more years. Would you believe that as late as 2013, our friends in Canada were still shelling out a whopping $18.5 million for their pager service? That's right, these little communication relics managed to hang on for quite a while, proving that sometimes old tech just doesn't want to retire. LaserDisc. Although it never quite made it to the big leagues of mainstream popularity, you see, it was mainly cherished by videophiles and film aficionados. LaserDisc made its grand entrance back in 1978 as the very first optical video storage format. But alas, it faced a significant hurdle: the cost of the players. These players were on the expensive side, which kept them from becoming a household item. Now, here's the interesting part. LaserDisc offered video quality that was a cut above the rest. It outshone VHS and Betamax in terms of visual excellence. And here's the kicker: the technology behind LaserDisc laid the groundwork for future marvels like the compact disc, DVD, and Blu-ray. So while it didn't exactly take the world by storm, it left an indelible mark on the tech landscape. It's quite remarkable, really, that LaserDisc hung in there until 2001, when the last video titles in this format were released. By that time, a total of 16.8 million LaserDisc players had found homes around the globe. So even though it danced on the fringes of popularity, it carved out its own unique place in the history of technology. Floppy disk. These were the data storage superheroes of the 1970s. The very first of their kind was a giant among disks, measuring a whopping 8 inches and capable of holding a mere 80 kilobytes of precious data. Can you imagine that? As time marched on, technology worked its magic and floppy disks started to shrink while their storage capacity grew. By the groovy mid-1980s, we had the 3.5-inch floppy disk, which could hold a respectable 1.44 megabytes of data. It was the bee's knees back then. But here's the rub, my young ones. Floppy disks had a bit of a vulnerability problem. They were scared of magnets and heat and were oh so easy to corrupt. It was like they had a secret mission to keep us on our toes. By the swinging 1990s, computer software had grown bigger and bolder. Many applications were so colossal that they needed a whole stack of floppy disks to run. Can you believe it? For example, something as fabulous as Adobe Photoshop required over a dozen disks just to get started. But fear not, for this is where the mighty CD-ROMs entered the scene. They could hold mountains of data, and they quickly became the new rulers of the digital kingdom. As a result, our dear floppy disks began to fade into the mists of time. These days, you'll only find them as a tiny symbol in most software applications, the save icon, a little reminder of the humble floppy disk's legacy. Fax machines. It was a bit like a modern version of the telegram, a marvel of its time. Back in the day, it allowed people and businesses to work some magic. They could scan documents, send them from one phone number to another, and voila! The recipient would witness the joy of a printed copy of the document magically appearing from their own machine. It was like a wizard's spell, all accomplished through a transmission of audio frequency tones that were decoded at the other end. But as with many of the technologies we've chatted about, the fax machine's time in the spotlight eventually dimmed. The advent of email, the rise of the internet, and the incredible advances in computing technology made it seem a bit like yesterday's news. Fax machines, with their whirring and beeping, were pushed aside in favor of more modern means of communication. Compact cassette tapes. In the year 1968, it made a grand entrance bearing the same magnetic tape technology that brought affordable audio to the masses. These cassettes served as blank canvases waited to be adorned with their own recordings, captured through the likes of dictaphones and boomboxes. They also graced our lives as pre-recorded treasures, delivering the sweet melodies of music albums. But they were not limited to music. Oh no, they doubled as data storage for the early home computers. In the 80s, my friends, that was the heyday of the cassette tape. They were the darlings of music lovers, but alas, the 1990s saw them eclipsed by the compact disc, a format that swiftly became the new standard. Yet these tenacious cassettes clung to life, continuing to find their way into our hearts. It wasn't until the year 2001 that pre-recorded cassette tapes truly began their swan song. Blank tapes, however, soldiered on, still gracing store shelves until the year 2012. In their prime, cassette tapes sold like hotcakes, with as many as 442 million units finding their way into the hands of eager listeners in the United States alone. Ah, the memories. Who among us doesn't recall the battles waged against cassette players to rescue chewed-up tapes, and the countless hours spent twirling them back together with the trusty pencil? Hey there, fellow time travelers. If you're enjoying this blast from the past, where we dive into the wonders of technology before the internet age, then why not join our time-traveling community? Hit that subscribe button below, and let's keep this journey through pre-internet technology alive. VHS tapes. These small reels of magnetic tape, snugly encased in plastic, were the stuff of magic. They brought joy to homes far and wide, whether they were used to capture precious family memories or rented from the local video store to watch the latest blockbuster. But my little ones, let me tell you, it wasn't always smooth sailing. Oh no, there were those heart-sinking moments when you popped a rented tape into the VCR only to discover that someone had forgotten to rewind it, and you could forget the sibling rivalries that erupted when someone recorded over your precious copy of Terminator 2. It was a roller coaster of emotions, to say the least. Then, as the years rolled on, a new star emerged on the home video horizon, the DVD. It was sleek, it was shiny, and it spelled the slow but steady decline of our beloved VHS tapes. By the time 2008 came around, the DVD had taken the crown as the favored video technology for both recording and film distribution. The era of VHS was coming to a close, leaving behind memories of those plastic-clad treasures that once filled our living rooms with movie magic. Overhead projectors. It was a true marvel of simplicity, a wonderful system that allowed teachers and presenters to share images, text, and drawings with the entire class. Here's how it worked. Instead of using regular paper, transparent sheets of acetate were the stars of the show. Presenters could write or draw on these acetate sheets, and the magic happened when they placed them on the projector. Like a wizard's spell, the images were then projected onto a screen for all to see right there in the classroom. Now, while it's quite possible that some classrooms still hold onto these trusty projectors, the reality is that modern projection technology and computers have taken center stage. Our beloved overhead projector, with its transparent sheets and simplicity, has for the most part stepped aside to make way for these newer, more high-tech gadgets. Phone books. While it wasn't exactly a technology, it served a crucial role in a time before the internet ruled our world. Picture this, a chunky paper directory that held the secrets to all the phone numbers you could ever imagine. It had listings for residences and businesses alike, and it was your go-to source for finding someone's digits. But alas, the internet came along, and these trusty phone books were pushed aside by the digital age. Despite their obsolescence, you might still occasionally find one of these hefty tomes dropped on your doorstep. It's a bit like receiving a message from the past. It's a reminder of how things used to be before smartphones made finding phone numbers as easy as a few taps on a screen. Betamax. It was the premiere of consumer-level video cassette tape formats born into the world in 1975 by the brilliant minds at Sony. In its heyday, Betamax was the gold standard for magnetic videotapes, captivating the hearts of many. But, my little ones, every kingdom has its rivals. Enter VHS, a formidable challenger that emerged in the 1980s. VHS began to dominate the scene, and slowly but surely, Betamax found itself fading into the background. Here's the twist, though. Betamax recorders weren't ready to throw in the towel. They soldiered on, continuing production until a surprising year, 2002. That's right, they held their ground long after VHS had claimed victory. And as if that weren't enough, the Betamax cassettes themselves remained available for purchase right up until 2016. It's a testament to the enduring legacy of a format that once ruled the world of home video, and it reminds us that even in the face of technological change, some things can linger on for quite some time. So, which of these did you have in the past? Let me know in the comments section, and as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel before you head on out.